The genitive in German is the last case that shows possession and a close relationship between objects. It answers the questions of what and of whom, or whose. Wovon, von wem, Wessen. The genitive is less common in modern spoken German, but is still vital in the language. The case's grammatical changes involve modifying articles, adjectives, pronouns, and nouns. Adjectives and pronouns are for future videos, but articles and nouns will be explained in this video. The genitive is also the only case that modifies nouns by adding letters to them to distinguish them from other cases. It's something that the previous cases don't do, so it's important to understand the patterns for all nouns and how they get modified when singular and plural, as I already explained in my previous videos. In German, you can find masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns that have the following endings, and to pluralize them, we follow these general patterns. However, as I said previously, the genitive is the only case where nouns will be modified with additional letters, specifically the masculine and neuter. In the genitive, changes will happen not only in the articles, but also in nouns that will have different endings depending on length and phonetics. In this case, the standard patterns for noun endings will not apply in the genitive, and therefore we have to introduce a different set of noun endings with common patterns. While the feminine endings will be the same and not change, masculine and neuter singular genitive nouns will have different endings that stand out from other cases, especially when compared to the articles. In the genitive, masculine and neuter singular nouns can be categorized by length, as opposed to their common noun endings. While it is possible to use the final letters of nouns, the genitive has a different system that makes it easier to understand noun endings. If a singular masculine or neuter noun has one syllable, add s. If a noun has two syllables or more, add s. This is the general pattern for singular genitive masculine and neuter nouns, but there are more patterns. If adding s alone would make the word difficult to pronounce, add s instead, as in des Kindes. Kind has only one syllable, and when it's put in the genitive, it should only have s. But the word will be too awkward, so we add s instead. Des Kindes, of the child. Additionally, German has noun endings with particular sounds that will almost always end in s because of their phonetic sounds. For instance, nouns ending in s, as zt, zet, x, and occasionally sh, will end in s to make their pronunciation simpler. Des Hauses, of the house. Des Fußes, of the foot. Des Platzes, of the square. Des Fisches, of the fish. If a noun ends in a vowel, we add s regardless of how long it is, like des Autos, of the car. Some masculine singular nouns are weak and require an extra letter to sound better. In the genitive, such nouns will not receive s or s. Instead, they will receive n, like des Studenten, of the student. This ending is also true for singular masculine nouns in the accusative and dative. So despite having a small deviation, this ending is simply borrowed from other cases. This is the general pattern for noun endings in the genitive, and it solely applies to masculine and neuter singular nouns. Plural nouns of any gender and feminine nouns will not be affected, so they follow the standard endings of every case. This is how nouns fully function in the genitive. Now, apart from modifying nouns, the genitive will also modify articles, and as such, some will be borrowed from previous cases. However, do not confuse them just because an article is identical to an article in a different case. We carefully have to pay attention to the genitive by looking at the endings of articles because, like in the previous cases, there is a common ubiquitous ending. The genitive definite articles are des, der, des, der, and the indefinite articles are eines, einer, eines. As you can see, the masculine and neuter definite articles changed, and they even share the same articles. But the feminine and neuter articles are identically borrowed from the nominative, which is also the same in the dative. Likewise, the indefinite article einer is borrowed from the dative. Do not confuse them with other cases because in the genitive, they all have different meanings. A good technique to remember this is to look at the endings of the articles. Das and eines are the articles for masculine and neuter nouns, and they end in s. Singular masculine and neuter genitive nouns also receive the s ending, so s is a ubiquitous ending in the genitive. To tell that a sentence is genitive, look at the article ending, and other contexts will also tell that it's genitive. So, the masculine genitive articles are des, eines. The feminine genitive articles are der, einer. The neuter genitive articles are des, eines, the same as the masculine, and the plural article for all of them is der. These patterns will immensely help in understanding how nouns and articles function in the genitive. Moreover, the case has additional functions when it comes to other grammatical concepts, like prepositions that work in the case. Notice that some of these indicate a place, time, level, or cause of something following words like of and from. This explains why asking of what or of whom works in the genitive. However, I will not use any of these in my examples because they're a guide to show you what other concepts can function in the genitive. The examples will use simple phrases like of the and of a, just to simplify how the genitive works, because it is the hardest to understand. There will be grammar that you don't know yet, but don't worry about it. For now, focus on how the genitive changes, and do not confuse it with other cases. Let's begin with masculine nouns. Here, we have sentences with a one-syllable noun. Der Knochen des Hundes. Der Knochen eines Hundes. To pluralize them, change the articles and nouns accordingly in each part of the sentences. Die Knochen der Hunde. The first part is nominative, but the second part is genitive, making the sentences genitive because of the articles and noun endings. By asking the bone of whom, we know it's genitive, and because Hund is a one-syllable noun, it ends in s when singular. Here, we have a two-syllable noun. Die Klasse des Lehrers. Die Klasse eines Lehrers. To pluralize it, change the articles and nouns accordingly. Die Klassen der Lehrer. The first part is nominative, but the second is genitive, making it genitive because of the articles and noun endings. Lehrer is a two-syllable noun, so it ends in s when singular. Here, we have a noun ending in sh. Das Bein des Tisches. Das Bein eines Tisches. To pluralize it, change the articles and nouns accordingly. Die Beine der Tische. The first part is nominative, but the second is genitive, making it genitive because of the articles and noun endings. Tisch is a masculine noun that ends in ch, so it ends in s when singular. Here, we have a noun ending in a vowel, and it's also a loan word. Die Fähigkeit des Profis. Die Fähigkeit eines Profis. To pluralize it, change the articles and nouns accordingly. Die Fähigkeiten der Profis. The first part is nominative, and the second is genitive, because of the articles and noun endings. Profi is a masculine noun ending in a vowel, so it ends in s when singular. It also ends in s when plural because it's a pluralized loan word, and such words typically end in s when plural. Here, we have a weak masculine noun. Das Buch des Studenten. Das Buch eines Studenten. To pluralize it, change the articles and nouns accordingly. Die Bücher der Studenten. The first part is nominative, and the second is genitive, because of the articles and noun endings. Since student is a weak masculine noun, it ends in n when singular, regardless of how long it is. This is how genitive masculine nouns work. Let's continue with feminine nouns. Since feminine nouns don't have any modification in the genitive, the examples will follow their standard endings. Here, we have a feminine noun ending in e. Das Futter der Katze. Das Futter einer Katze. To pluralize it, change the noun. Das Futter der Katzen. The first part is nominative, and the second is genitive. When it comes to the definite article der, there is no difference between the singular and plural, so the only way to differentiate them is by the plural noun. Katzen. Here we have a feminine noun ending in ion. Das Volk der Nation. Das Volk einer Nation. To pluralize it, change the noun. Das Volk der Nationen. The first part is nominative, and the second is genitive. The plural noun will tell the difference. Nationen. Here we have a feminine noun with an irregular pattern. Die Blume der Frau. Die Blume einer Frau. To pluralize it, change the nouns accordingly. Die Blumen der Frauen. The first part is nominative and the second is genitive. Let's finish with neuter articles and nouns. Neuter articles and nouns in the genitive are the same as the masculine. So in this case, we look at the length of nouns. Here, we have a one-syllable noun. Die Seite des Bettes. Die Seite eines Bettes. To pluralize it, change the articles and nouns accordingly. Die Seiten der Betten. It's genitive because of the articles and noun endings. Here, we have a two-syllable noun. Das Telefon des Mädchens. Das Telefon eines Mädchens. To pluralize it, change the articles and nouns accordingly. Die Telefone der Mädchen. It's genitive because of the articles and noun endings. Here, we have a noun ending in s. Die Wand des Hauses. Die Wand eines Hauses. To pluralize it, change the articles and nouns accordingly. Die Wände der Häuser. It's genitive because of the articles and noun endings. Here, we have a noun ending in a vowel, and it's also a loan word. Das Rad des Autos. Das Rad eines Autos. To pluralize it, change the articles and nouns accordingly. Die Räder der Autos. It's genitive because of the articles and noun endings. In this example, the plural also ends in s because it's a pluralized loan word, and such words typically end in s when plural. Overall, this is the general system of nouns and articles in the genitive, so this concept applies to most nouns in German. Don't forget that the genitive also modifies pronouns and adjectives, which will be explained in future videos. After learning the genitive, the German cases come to an end, as I have shown everything that you need to know about them. This is how they work in German, and in the next videos, advanced grammar, verbs, adjectives, and pronouns will be explained.